welcome back to the latest episode of the Master of None podcast. I am your host, Stephen Murphy, as always, joined by the usual rugby crew of Sam and Westy, and a very different tone, a little less celebrating from the two boys there this week, shockingly enough. This is not going to be more of a podcast, more of a therapy session, but we'll get to that later on. But Sam, Westy, thanks as always for joining us. Westy, how are you?
I'm pretty good, man. How are you getting on?
Good. Sam, yourself?
Good, yeah. Started teaching from home there today, so back to reality now after the long Christmas break.
Reality has slapped you hard back in the face. So we obviously have some rugby, some interpros to talk about. We'll start with Leinster Ulster because, let's be honest, the majority of this is going to be Connacht teams, Connacht Munster teams, and then we have some listener questions, guys. Listener questions coming at the end. So
we have listeners.
Apparently, three people. Three people. One of them's Aina, so we all two other guys. But yeah, we'll get to them later on. But start Leinster. The first thing I want to talk about with Leinster Ulster is we had a bit of an argument on WhatsApp at the time. Leinster come out to the pitch by All of the Lights by Kanye West, and you two schmucks said that it wasn't a good song to come out to, and I take offence to that. So explain yourself.
I don't think it's not a good song to come out to. I don't think it's a good song for a rugby team to come out to. I think
that is old-fashioned, Sam, and that is the problem with rugby these days. People like you.
It's a great song for a basketball team or an NFL team. Like I'm a Philadelphia Eagles fan. Like they're coming out to Meek Mills. Like I love coming out to a big song in an arena and that. Where you're coming out to an empty RDS, I'm not sure if All of the Lights is particularly pumping. Like, I'd go for. I'm more of a West's Awake kind of guy. Get the juices going.
Rule the world by Take That.
Exactly.
That's a halftime song, and everyone.
Everyone knows it. I just think it's a joke. I was pumped in my couch when it came on, and that's why I put it into the WhatsApp to share my happiness with you two clowns, and I got nothing but bad stuff back. Westy, what's your opinion?
It's an awful song.
It's an awful song.
There's a verse in that song where Kanye West just lists types of light. It's like flashlight, strobe light, street light, all of the lights. Oh, okay, all of the lights? That's good. No.
It's true,
Awful.
but there's so many lights. There is so many different type of lights. You know what I mean?
I know we've been waiting for years for a definitive list of all of the lights, but it doesn't even list all of the lights. It only lists some of the lights.
Oh, God.
My advice, stop the lights.
Stop the lights, yeah. Okay, fair enough. We'll get on to the proper stuff now, but let us know if you're listening. Tweet us. All of the lights, good or bad for walk on or entrance songs. But we'll start with the actual game. This was, I think, a lot of us when Connacht bet Leinster, we all feared, and Ulster fans feared in particular, a bit of a backlash. We knew the team would be stronger than the Connacht team that was named, and we kind of seen that earlier on, didn't we, Westy? Like Leinster from the top or from the start of the game looked way sharper and way. Well, I don't know what's the best way to put it, but the line speed was quicker. There wasn't as many mistakes. Like, did you see that from the start?
Yeah, I think for 90% of the team, I think like their line speed was a lot better. They seemed to be better organized. They didn't really. They weren't playing like a hurt team. They were playing like a team kind of with something to prove. Because it was 13 changes from the week before, so it is essentially a different team playing this week. I thought the likes of Gibson Park was really good. He was so quick in distributing the ball. Hugo Keenan was fantastic at fullback, and I think like the likes of the Leinster pack again are just so strong. Ryan was everywhere. I just think they kind of, a lot of them looked really excited to be back on the pitch. Some of them were still a bit sluggish, but again, like maybe some of those lads haven't really played since definitely pre-Christmas.
Yeah, exactly. Sam, what did you think? Like, I know the Leinster started off better, but it's still the first half was quite cagey, and Ulster very much in it, and even towards it, like leading at half time.
Yeah, I thought it was a good game. I was impressed by Ulster, but I was much more kind of impressed. And I know it's easy to say, oh, it's boring how good Leinster have been, but I thought Leinster were better than they had been in a good few weeks. They'd been winning, and then they lost to Connacht, but they'd been winning for a while, and it wasn't as impressive as they had been in the past. But I thought they were very, very good. I thought Gibson Park played really well. I thought Larmour was good. I thought Keenan was brilliant. Really, really looked confident in that fullback, and he came for absolutely everything. I thought they got away with the Ross Byrne in centre. I don't think much was really asked of him. I think he was very much kind of just there to fill and to be. They're saying a second playmaker. I saw that about once. I thought they got away with that. Doris was good in the back row. Cronin was strong runner. Fardy's always going to be good. James Ryan was his big usual self. So, I thought they were very good. But, Ulster came out and fair play to them. They put it to them, and they really, Ulster have been so impressive this season. And it was again this week. That's a Leinster team that you could see that being put down. I'm looking at the squad now, and I'm thinking, right in saying other than Scott Fardy, that could be a starting Ireland team. They're all Irish qualified. They're all international standard players. You wouldn't put your nose up at any of them really being included. Maybe Dave Carney, but the rest of them you could put on the pitch.
It's a pretty decent finish from Dave Carney.
Yeah, we can't. We always abuse, and Keno probably listen. We always abuse Dave Carney, so we have to give credit where credit's due. It was a very good finish, Sam. Come on, now don't.
Okay, it was a great finish, but I still would turn my nose.
It was poor defending at the same time, though. It was very good from Carney.
Liam Tolan saying that it was potentially try of the year.
Yeah,
I know it's only the ninth.
Did he not watch the Georgia game? Did he not watch the Georgia game?
But,
obviously not,
because that's the try of the year.
Yeah, no,
I think Georgia try.
I think Ulster were very good though to put it up to that team. I was disappointed that there was no John Cooney versus the other scrum half race at half time. That had been my highlight of the previous couple of weeks. I was hoping that was a thing that he'd do, and he'd always just race. Billy Burns is good. McElroy is very good again. Mike Lowry does not look like he should be as good as he is, but I was really impressed with Ulster, and I think that they were in it until unfortunately they lost. But it was it was a good game. It was really really interesting game. Cagey enough to begin with. I think both teams didn't want to be the first to slip up, and that allowed it to get cagey. But once they both got into it, it really started to purr and it was taken over. Yeah,
I think we've seen that from Leinster. They definitely, the first half they were a bit sluggish, still in areas better than they were last weekend, but still getting up through the gears. And then the second half, I think we finally seen through the likes of Hugo Keenan where they started up the ante. Henshaw was fantastic again. We've seen him really come back to form that we all know and love. But Westy, I think, is there starting to be a bit of belief among teams now when they play Leinster? Because Ulster definitely, I think, especially how they ended that first half, they really, I think, believe they can win, which we may not have seen from previous games. Is just because of the Connacht win that teams now maybe think, hold on a second, they're not invincible?
I don't know if it's just because of the Connacht win, but obviously that it goes a long way. You see a team that have only lost to Saracens really in the last 24 months. You see them actually lose, you're like, oh my God, they're beatable. But I do think that, we've said it before, a lot of was it Leicester before Christmas that they played in the Champions Cup? Or is it Northampton? I can't remember. I was getting mixed up.
Northampton.
Northampton. That they played, for 50 minutes, they were pretty put to the sword by Northampton. So I think we've seen these kind of shaky performances from Leinster, or I don't even want to say shaky, but, maybe just doing enough to win. And I think then seeing them lose, I think Ulster had everything to play for. Ulster win that game. They've pretty much won the league, because they know they can beat Munster. They've done that already. So what are they left with then? As long as they top their group, there's only going to be at the moment, there's only going to be a final. So I think, and I don't think they needed any help in getting up for that game. I think, okay, we've seen Leinster not be great and still get wins, and then having them recently lost, I think it was all really on the line for Ulster. And they were, again, I don't think the scoreline is entirely fair. They were very close to cause another upset there.
Yeah. Well, we thought Leinster defence was brilliant all game, keeping them scoreless in regards to tries. Only points Ulster scored was from the boot of Cooney, but Ulster fought very hard at the end to get that losing bonus point. But Sam, is that a case of Leinster's defence being so good, or were Ulster just not clinical enough?
No, I think it was Leinster's defence were that good. I wouldn't question how clinical Ulster were. I thought Ulster were very good. They looked dangerous quite a lot. I thought Billy Burns was running it quite well. I thought, and I'm not usually his biggest fan, but I thought Fadis was good. I thought he was he played really well. I think Mike Lowry was very good. So I wouldn't say anything really was wrong with Ulster's attack. I just think that Leinster were just extremely vigilant in defence. They were much quicker than they were against Connacht the week before. I think, like I said earlier, I think Ross Byrne they hit him away a little bit. I don't think he did too much. I saw him being lauded online for his work on the ground. Maybe once or twice it was all right, but I thought Henshaw was brilliant. He was on another level. Sexton was his usual self. I thought Keenan was very, very safe. I think on the whole, that Leinster back line or that Leinster defensive line was just too hard to break down. They were so physical, so quick.
Let's talk about Sexton, because watching the game, his first two kicks were awful. It looked like he hadn't kicked the ball.
But I heard someone try to use the cold weather as an excuse.
He lives in Ireland. Get used to it. But I think we're okay to give him a pass. He hasn't played a lot recently. He's coming back into a Leinster team that, again, he hasn't played with. Cohesion could be an issue. He finished the game fairly strongly, a few nice kicks, and he did slot a conversion, which was nice in the corner. Westy, what did you think of Sexton's performance throughout? Are you critical, or are you giving him a pass?
I kind of give him a pass. Like, I don't think it was overly impressive. And again, if you're taking that performance alone, I wouldn't start him for Ireland. Decent defensive shift, as did everyone Leinster. I think he had 10 tackles made by the end of the game. So yeah, I give him a pass. Like, again, as you say, first came back. I don't know how he was playing after getting the HIA last week, but again, if he passed the protocols, he passed the protocols. That's fair enough. Good to see him back playing. I think, unfortunately, as long as he gets a passing mark, he's not going to be shifted out of the starting Ireland jersey.
But hear me out, Westy. What about put him on a wing? Like, he looked dangerous on the wing with that stepped and breaking on the line. Get a 10 in, put Sexton on the wing. I'm telling you, there's something there. If you're going to put
dual playmaker.
Yeah. Ross Byrne at 13. Why not have triple playmaker? Put Sexton on the wing, Carty in out half, Ross Byrne out 13. Like,
the All Blacks are shaking their boots. I'll tell you that.
The Barrett brothers haven't a clue what's going on.
Yeah, Bowden's going to stay in Japan. He's too afraid of the triple playmaker role. Yeah, Sam, what do you think with Sexton? Is it just a case of he's just getting back up to his form?
Yeah, it's an issue that is going to exist with Sexton for the rest of his career now. It has been a big problem with him for the last while, is he doesn't play that much rugby. He plays Ireland, he plays the quarterfinals and semi-finals. He's not your week in, week out Pro 12, Pro 14, out half for Leinster. He's rarely on the pitch. He might make one InterPro and stuff, So, like, it will take him time to come into it. I don't think it's beyond saying that, like, you need him to get a run of games. And I know it's hard to balance that with his age and his fitness and stuff and his injury record. But, he has to get a run of games. If you go into a tournament cold like that, you'll see the first half of the first game back, he'll be extremely cold. I don't think he was particularly bad after that, but I thought at the start he looked out of it. I was impressed with how much he was able to play, considering he was off 6 days before with HIA. I don't know how they managed to get that through. Either he didn't fail the HIA, but they kept him off precautionary at the time, or he failed it and they managed to get through 6 days. I don't understand how they could do that. I thought it was a minimum week, but they're not going to have risked him. So fair play to him for playing it. Fair play to him for playing how he did, but like we said, he's rusty, and he will be rusty every time he plays if he doesn't play more often. But how can you do that if he's trying to conserve himself? I don't think it's a good plan to have your starting 10 play a quarter of your annual games. It's not, I don't think, right, and I don't think it's going to do them or us any good. But what do I know? I haven't won 4 or 5 Heineken Cups and whatever else they've got. Yeah,
true. You haven't, Sam. Just to remind you haven't. We'll move on to Connacht Munster. So I think what the best way to touch this game is, we'll take the first 78 minutes first, and then we'll talk about the last 2. So first 78, Westy, it seems to happen to rugby teams all the time. They have the lifetime of or performance of a lifetime one week, and they never seem to follow it up the following week. We've seen it with England in the World Cup, beat New Zealand, and then they kind of struggle against South Africa. We've seen it with Ireland. It was a 2015 World Cup. We bet France, incredible game, and then the next week we go out and we're poo. Why is that the case? What happened here? Because Connacht weren't great at that first 78 minutes.
I mean, I think it's very different at an international, especially at World Cup level. Like, those games are absolutely energy zapping.
No, it's the exact same.
No, I think maybe we were a bit high on our own supply. We all were definitely very high on our own supply at one stage last week. I don't think we were necessarily bad. I just think it was a little bit uncreative. I think the conditions turned before the game. And I did say it last week, we kind of take that kicking game out of play and we didn't really substitute it with anything else. We had moments of clever play, but we seemed hell-bent on getting a pick-and-go try. Like, we were constantly knocking on the door in that manner, and so reluctant to try and move out wide. And it's completely highlighted then when we get to the last 5 minutes we'll talk about. Like, how many times, I count from memory now, and forgive me, I only watched the full game twice, once, and then I watched a bit of it again today. But there was like 3 or 4 times where we're camped inside the 22 at their 5-meter line, and we get turned over or we give away a penalty. And it's just kind of, they were repeated instances of 8 to 10 to 12 phases where we're just picking and going, and eventually it gets knocked loose.
And that's not like the Connacht that we've seen under Andy Friend, where they have been creative, they have been willing to try stuff. Why did it seem to be the game plan was to try and match Munster physically when that's not going to happen, unfortunately?
But they put in such an amazing defensive shift, and like again, I might get cited for this, but I don't think their backs were anyway impressive. I think it was their forwards that completely won the game for them, and we seemed reluctant to challenge them anywhere else. We seemed to get in our heads that we're going to try and outmuscle them. Now that would have been a huge momentum swing if we had, but at the same time, the amount of times we visited their 22 and didn't take anything from it, like that is crushing on your confidence. Like you can't build momentum that way.
Sam, what did you think when you watched that first 78 minutes? Because no one, I think, would have argued at that stage that Munster were the better team, not albeit that impressive, but the better team on the night. But what did you think of that first 78 minutes?
Yeah, I thought Munster were definitely the better team, but I was really, really impressed with our dogged determination in defence. We really, outside of the yellow card, we kept them to no tries. We were brilliant defensively. I thought we were really tight. We were really compact. I thought there was kind of a little bit of lack of imagination, whereby we were playing very kind of tight to the scrum half, trying to beat it up, like Westy said, go up through the middle. And you're not really going to beat Munster that game. Trying to rationalise it, maybe I think that what they wanted was for Carty to have the game he had the week before. It was the platform that was created by the forwards that allowed him to do that. And maybe they were trying to establish a platform, and it just never came and it never happened. And they stuck to a game plan maybe too religiously. But, I can't fault them, because if the game plan, like if you're looking at that Munster team, you're looking at a Connacht team, people would heavily side on Munster in that regard. I think, you've got we had a couple of injuries. They have like Farrell, Diolande, Haley's good, like Daly, Hanrahan is at the moment their first choice 10. I think that they were probably heavy favourites, or better favourites anyway. And I think we stuck into it and we stuck with it. And that was the same thing that, Munster being kind of praised for the last couple of weeks, like the Claremont game and stuff, and the Ulster game is staying in the game and putting themselves in with an opportunity to win it and snatch it. And that's what we did. And I was really, really impressed with the defence. I was impressed with the physicality, even though we were beaten by them. I was impressed. It's the first time I've seen a Connacht team really step to a Munster team. And, you can't take away from the fact that like Arnold and Daly, like they were shutting down Diolande. Like I know he was good, but he wasn't his scary self I was worried would run riot. Wooten was a little bit quiet. Porch was good again. Buckley definitely can't throw into the line out again. We won't give him that opportunity. It was bizarre. It was justified though. I read online that if you swap if your hooker's on a yellow card and you swap someone in for a hooker, that has to stay for the rest of the yellow. That sub has to stay. But if you do it for a scrum, it doesn't. It can just be for the next phase of play. So they didn't want to change out someone to bring on a hooker if it was only going to be one or two lineouts. They were waiting for the scrum to do it because it's not a fixed swap then. But yeah, no, and like we got ourselves in a position where we could have won it. So I think on the whole, we weren't overly as impressive as we were against Leinster, probably because we didn't get the platform. We didn't get going in the end. But you have to look at that in respect to 2-3 years ago. Connacht lose that by 20 points easily. I've been at that game a load of times where we never got going and nothing happened for us. I've been in the sports ground and rued the fact that we didn't try anything and that we were just conceded tries from the halfway line once or twice, between 60 and 80, and it made it into a 20-point game. So I'm really, really impressed with that. Decision making maybe needs to be addressed, and I think Andy Friend said that, and we'll get on to that now in a second. So I think that was that for me. It wasn't a bad performance. It just wasn't as good as the week before. And happy to have a few players come back. So.
Yeah, the mass confusion on Twitter when Delahunt got the yellow card because nobody knew that he got the yellow card.
No, it wasn't announced.
Show it,
it wasn't announced on either channel.
No.
As well as that, like while we're on the subject of the yellow card, harsh yellow card that early.
Very harsh.
I don't think Frank Murphy covered himself in glory again. I think like both teams' fans on Twitter were saying they were being shafted by him, which I don't think looks good. If both teams say you played well and you were fair, that's fine. But if both teams think you're being shafted, it means you're making terrible decisions.
At least consistent, though. So
he's very consistent. I've been calling for consistency in the league referees for the last year or two. But I want a bit of like standard and consistency. I
Good consistency.
I don't get it. I like there were mass complaints about the last time we refed a Connacht Munster match, and then the same again this time. So I don't understand it. But
yeah, exactly. He didn't have a great game, but we're not. I'm refusing to bash referees in this podcast. But yeah, the mass confusion of Delahunt going off wasn't covered, and then the first time people realised was Buckley throwing in the liner. People are like, "What the fuck happened here?" But Westy, we'll get on to Munster because we have to obviously talk about them. They managed this game, I would say, very well. They're a cynical team, but in the best type of way, as in like they're very smart. They play the ref well. They know what they can get away with. All the great teams do it, so I don't think it's a bad thing. But we have to talk about Tadhg Byrne, just how incredible he was that game.
Yeah, no, and I said I do think it was the Munster pack that running. I thought Gavin Coombs was pretty damn impressive as well. But yeah, for me, Tadhg Byrne was, again, he was everywhere. What did he get? 5 turnovers?
5 turnovers, and if he had only got 4, Connacht probably would have won the game.
Yeah, well, there you go. Well, we're that close. No, again, I think if we had won it, I don't think any of us would have said we deserved to win it. I think Munster, as you say, like they have such a big, powerful, brutish pack. We said they were the kind that they don't say die. They kind of keep niggling at you all day, and I think Tadhg Byrne really led the charge. Again, I'm calling for it. I'm calling for a Byrne and Ryan second row in Ireland. I don't know why it's not our go-to thing. 2 brilliant, they very good ball carriers, like unbelievable workhorses, and fucking Tadhg Byrne turnover machine.
I would love to see the stats of games played for Munster and man the match awards won. It must be 1 in 5 for Tadhg Byrne. He's that consistent. But why hasn't it worked at Irish level? Because he's never performed at that level. Obviously, it's a step up, don't get me wrong. But he's so brilliant for Munster, and it has never seemed to click in a green jersey. Why do you think that is?
He's only really played, again, look, please correct me if I'm wrong, he's really played 2 or 3 games in the second row for Ireland. Like, they keep playing him in back row. And okay, I know he can play there as well, but it's not where he's playing week in, week out for Munster. And I don't think that's where his best skills lie. Like, we are missing that kind of powerful enforcer, breakdown dominator. And they're all words you can use to describe Tadhg Byrne.
He keeps being called undersized, especially at international level. But he seems like a massive man. I don't get that. But people say he doesn't have enough beef on him, like a Quinn Rue does. But he looks big enough to me. Sam, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't have any issues with him. I think he should be starting in the row with Ryan probably. If I was being completely unbiased, if I was being biased now, it'd be a different story. But no, I think he's the best player we have at turning over the ball that way. He very much, he toes that line of legality. There was a few times during the game I was screaming at the TV going, how is the ref not called that? But he's so good at it that he gets away with it more often than not. So the odd one does go his way. It must just be a system thing. It must just be he works well in whatever Munster system is going, and he has cohesion with the players around him, and he knows the system better than when he goes to Ireland. The step up might not necessarily be about ability. Sometimes the step up is a change in system that doesn't suit your game. And I know it doesn't sound like it, but you don't always have to put your 15 best players out. It's your 15 players that buy into the system the most would be more important for me. If you put 15 absolute studs out, yeah, they might run riot in some games, but when it gets to the really tough games, if they're not bought into the system properly, they're not going to work. So maybe he just doesn't suit the system, or he hasn't learned it properly. I'd love to see him in the next year or two push on and start more regularly with Ryan, because I do think that they're our best pairing.
Yeah, I would agree too. I think they're your best pairing at that level, but nothing against the likes of Quinn Rue, who was brilliant in the autumn internationals. But we have to, suppose, talk about the last 2 minutes, guys. I said the last 2 minutes. It went on for 4 or 5 minutes, probably 5 minutes.
How good was that crossfield kick to Delan, and how good did Delan do? Oh my God!
Well, it's such a classic Carty. We'll get on to Carty because it's one of the questions that come in, but it's just such a me and Lorcan, as you both know, a mate of mine I used to work with, we've come up with the term doing a Carty. So doing a Carty can be one of 2 things. It's missing the 20-yard kick at the start of the game. That's also doing a Carty. Then slotting the sideline kick to get within the losing bonus point. That's also doing a Carty. They're both opposite ends of the spectrum, but that is Carty. That crossfield kick, I'm trying to think of other 10s that would have attempted that, and it's Finn Russell maybe.
And what's my man?
Carlos Spencer
left Gloucester. Sips.
Oh, Cipriani. Like that is like it's only a handful of names that would even think to do that, and it's what makes him so good. But it's also what makes him because if that doesn't come off, it's incredibly infuriating. But so basically, breakdown. Connacht do brilliantly. They get Munster go into a yellow card, 14 men. Connacht finally play it wide and amazingly enough create chances, score a try in the corner. Carty kicks an incredible one, and at that stage, I think every Connacht fan are like, you know what, losing bonus point, that's not a bad day at the office after that performance, after that game. But in classic Connacht fashion, they go back up the pitch, march up the pitch, get to within literally that second yellow card, which, by the way, Mike McCarthy, I think was. Yeah, Mick McCarthy. Incredible yellow card to give away. That is a game-saving yellow card. And I know it's not necessarily good to applaud that, but it is fantastic thinking on his feet to give that yellow card away because Connacht have got 3 rucks in a row, a quick ball, another quick ball, and that's a try. That's game over. He stops that. But to then take the scrum, are we all agree? I think scrum's the right option to take there?
I was screaming scrum at the TV, yeah.
Yeah. Scrum is the right option, but I want to just go back a couple of weeks when I mentioned that in the Premiership, loads of teams have started just going with tap penalties in the 22 because it causes chaos because no one has a defensive structure to work out against it. You just tap and throw a big pass 3 men over and you might have a strong runner, you might have a ball player. So I think that that's something that we need to start looking at, especially Connacht, because we do get beaten in the scrums quite often, not all the time, and we didn't in that case. But a quick tap penalty, throw a bit of mentalness in the works. It happens. Like Bristol are doing it and Wasps are doing it non-stop, and I'm really impressed by how successful it's been.
Yeah, they go with the penalty. Munster only put 7 in. They keep Stander out of the scrum. Scrum holds still. Connacht don't get a nudge on it like that, but Boyle picks and goes from the scrum, which I think, again, I don't think anyone really... Actually, we'll bring that into now. So, Aina, one of the questions we got in was from Aina on Twitter, and he said, would a Butler, a John Muldoon, or even a Papali'i have made that same decision as Boyle did on that scrum? Nothing negative towards Boyle, obviously, but he just wanted to think what our opinions were and what other Connacht dates, past or present, would have chosen from that scrum. Westy, we'll start with you.
I think Mull might have picked and went. I don't know if Jared Butler picks and goes. I'm first off, I'm okay with the pick and go decision. I'm fine with that. I don't know. I've rewatched it today. If what I think Butler might have done is he picks and goes there to the right, and Porchy lined up behind the scrum and folds around. So I think the likes of actually Kobe Fainga probably would have, if he was in the A position, probably would have got that ball away to Porchy, and Porchy might have gotten over the line.
I'm glad you actually pointed out because Boyle's hands are free. That pass is on.
Yeah. Now again, Porchy is a decent bit behind him, but we know he's got great acceleration.
See, I was thinking the same, and it was put to me on Twitter in 8-9-14, which is a very, very standard rugby move. But are they all secretly kind of thinking you want a kickable one as well? You don't want to score in the corner and lose by a point, and that might have been part of the reason because they started kind of going back in left. Because I would have put it to anyone that in that circumstance, if you're not searching for 7, you're searching for 5 or 3. Boyle, I don't think takes the contact. I think he takes it and gives in the 8-9-14 because that's something that lots of teams are doing, and with that overlap, I don't think that Boyle made a bad decision. I think that the pick and go was fine. It was absolutely right. I think, like Westy said, Kobe or Jared probably would have given it. We've no way of telling what Papali'i done, but if Papali'i acts the way I think he would, he probably wasn't doing anything but running hard at someone.
He's picking and going.
I'm not criticizing Boyle's decision to pick and go. I'm actually okay with that. That's something I saw from his side. It's the next phase
after that.
Yeah, even if you want to do one more slow ball, at that point you have to whip it wide. I'd say we were almost too afraid to go for it. It's that kind of weird inconsistency that we have where we weren't able to back ourselves. You had to go hell for leather. You had to go big or go home. You had to do quick ball out back left where the numbers were and gone for the overlap. I'd take the 5 points and worry about the conversion afterwards. Honestly.
Yeah, give yourself a chance, basically. Yeah.
But
why is the confidence not there? This team just beat Leinster a week ago in RDS in Dublin for the first time in God knows how long.
I think that comes from being bet out of their 22 5 times previously in the game. Sorry, Sam. Go on.
Well, like it's probably it's a lasting issue. We've talked about it a few times in the podcast. We are not as creative in the 22 as I'd like us to be. We're not as creative in the 22, and we regularly have games where I tweet afterwards that we didn't convert our position or our possession, and that has been an issue. And it might be a mental block that's still getting at them. It might be kind of almost like try-line fever, making a poor mistake. There was a miscommunication between that, because I don't think that it didn't look to me like Marmion was happy with the decision to go tight. He didn't look, if you watch it back, he didn't look like he was happy with whatever decision had been made. You'd want to put your house really on, you put money on Carty being confident enough in himself to do something, or you put Daly in that 10 channel and you try and run over someone. I think that there was a miscommunication, and it has been a problem for us a few times. There was times earlier on last season, not this season, where I said we were more likely to score a 40-yard try or a 50-yard try than we were to convert in the 22, and it is an issue, and it was there again. The decision making isn't good. Maybe we just kind of get a bit too, like, you know, bit of a rush of blood to the head or something, but it's something needs to kind of happen. We need to be able to calm and cool, and you need to be able to look to your leaders, you know, and that'll come. Butler wasn't on the pitch, Bundy wasn't on the pitch, and those are two big decision making people we have. And, you know, Boyle is a young captain when he's there. Carty's not young, but he's still relatively inexperienced in terms of like that sort of position. So it's tough. It's tough. And it was tough to take at the time and watch. It was really, really soul destroying. I was kind of in my mind thinking, Jesus Christ, if we had kind of defended that well and gotten it, you'd have to be talking about that as one of the good, proper performances. The way Munster against Claremont, they were just defending, and then came back into it, and they kept themselves in the game enough to come back and win it. And to beat Munster and Leinster in the same week would have been huge for us. But
has that ever happened before?
Not that I can remember.
To beat Leinster and Munster in consecutive weeks?
Not in consecutive weeks, but I think under Kieran Keane, didn't we get a clean sweep of the provinces? We beat.
We did beat the three of them under Kieran Keane somehow.
As I said, I can't believe it.
The only 3 games we won that year.
Yeah. But a question I think then was also been asked on Twitter: who makes that call? Is it Paul Boyle coming on as captain? Is it Carty? Is it Marmion? Who's the decision on to make there at that scrum, or that even in the rucks following?
That's your leadership group. That's a decision that varies from team to team. You can't have a definitive answer whereby your scrum half, your 10 or your 8 does that. You know, you look to your captain first, and then you look to your big decision makers. A captain will have players whose advice he trusts. They'll have game plans that are in place. You know, they will have come up with what to do if they're playing against maybe 14, not 13. But like that's an executive decision that's been made, or, you know, it's given to someone to make. And like that still to me looks like it needs to be established properly. Boyle didn't really look like he made the right decision if it was Boyle, but might not have been. So it's hard to kind of tell. But
that pick and go is pre-called before the scrum, so it's not Boyle being like, "Oh, I'm going to pick this up and go." Like,
but it looked to me like keeping it tight was
100%.
It you know, that doesn't look like a Connacht team to me that just kept it tight for the sake of keeping it tight. They'd been losing that all game. So.
But I think they're being a bit. I was actually surprised how not angry the two. Well, not as angry as I thought these two would be afterwards. But like Marmion is incredibly experienced. Carty is experienced. These lads are experienced enough that they should know what to do in a situation and to act upon it. And it seemed to be a total failure of, you can say leadership or whatever, but I feel like they were experienced enough to know what to do in that position. No.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can. I think you can, you know, lay blame at the door and say, like, we made the wrong decision and it's on the leadership group. But I think the reason I'm not that overly upset is because I don't think we deserve to win it. You know, like, we lost to a better team. We had an opportunity to win at the end. I don't want to say we got lucky, but we came alive in the last 5 minutes out of nowhere. So you can't then look back over the last 75 minutes and be like, oh, well, we should have won. It's like, well, no, we didn't take our opportunities during the game. Again, now, hindsight's 2020, but there were very kickable penalties that we got in the 60th minute, 65th minute, 70th minute. If we're taking those, we build back into the game. But look, at the time, I wasn't saying take the points. I was like, we have to get a try to get a losing bonus point here.
Yeah, so, I agree.
Yeah, I think the reason I'm not angry at the decision is because I don't know what has been decided. Like, you can't say in training the decision maker is so-and-so and then decide on the game day that because Marmion is on the pitch, he is automatically going to start making a decision like that. Those are all things that elite rugby teams come up with, and they know who the decision makers are. They respect the captain. They converse with the players that they need to converse with, and that's the reason I'm not angry, is because I don't think that anyone's gone, over their remit and like above their remit and decided to do something, and it's not, it's gone beyond who the captain was. That decision was made by someone that they all trusted to make the decision, and unfortunately it didn't pay off. And the win against Gloucester with the Robin Copeland try at the end, that was also silly decision, but it paid off. So you win some, you lose some. I'm not going to be as harsh as Westy and say we didn't deserve to win it. I don't think we were as good because we didn't have as much of the ball, but I think we kept ourselves in the game in such a way that I was so impressed. And I think that if we'd come away with the win, it would be talked about like a kind of a bit of a masterclass, an underdog, good performance, keep yourself in and give yourself an opportunity to win it in the last minute. I wouldn't have said we didn't deserve it. I would have just said it was an ugly win, and we've praised Munster for winning ugly this season a few times. And, I think that we would very much be ecstatic and deserving if we had have won, because we got ourselves in that position. I think a big shout out has to go to Sullivan, he's only newly professional. This is either his first or second season. It's with last year and all that, I can't even remember, but I thought he made that huge break and he scored the try. I thought he was really, really strong when he came on, very smart on the sideline. So I thought he made a big difference, and maybe there was confidence in him to go wide when we did. Yeah,
that's great to see. Also, Niall Murray back.
Yeah.
Guest on the podcast. Good to see him back, being able to at least tog out. So that's good. I think it's just so disappointing because, how often do Connacht have that opportunity to just snatch it right to death against a team like that? Do you know what I mean? It would have been great for Connacht to have won 2 in a row like that. And Westy, actually, that brings me back to your point. Last week you said that the result necessarily wasn't as important. The performance was. Do you feel like the performance was up to or acceptable at least?
I'm disappointed overall. I feel like it's passable. Like as Sam said, we had some massive shifts in defense. When Carty was on, he was like that crossfield kick I said to the line was fantastic. We had some big performances. Do I think it was good enough? Not really. I'm probably a little bit pessimistic in that. I think it was a passable performance. Like, no one's going to go out and slate them. We were competitive. We matched. I think we're playing against a better team, and we fronted up to them pretty well. But I think we have to break out of this mold now of kind of been our own worst enemies for a lot of it, I think.
Yeah, I think and actually it's a good segue. So next question comes in from Over the Hill Prop. Thank you for sending the question, but it's Westy. We'll start with you. As much as Carty bossed the game in the RDS, do you think the game management failures, especially in the last 10 minutes against Munster, will cost him in the national pecking order?
I wouldn't be surprised if it did, but I unfortunately I don't think Carty's going to get a fair shout anyway. There was a lot of pressure put on. Like their line speed was brilliant. Like even like Hanrahan and Chris Farrell and Dylan, they were really quick up off the line. They put our halfbacks on a lot of pressure. We didn't really have kind of the time that we had in Leinster to execute our game plan. I think if you can take anything solid away from this, is that it highlights again just what Carty can bring, and the fact that he's a very, very different 10 to who else is available. I think that is probably still a major selling point. I think he's worth having in the squad.
Sam, what do you think?
Yeah, I really don't think it should at all, because I don't think there was any issue with his game management, to be perfectly honest. But I think it will, because I don't think, like Westy said, he's ever going to get a fair crack at the whip, because I think there's a narrative surrounding him that, he's really, really hot and cold, and that has been the case in the past. But I don't think that game there is a massive step down from the Leinster game. I think the circumstance is completely different. I think if you have the player like a Finn Russell or a Danny Cipriani or whoever under that much pressure, they have the same sort of game. They manage the ball quietly. They don't do anything rash or stupid. When you're on the front foot, that's when you can do your exquisite kind of big stuff. And that's what he did against Leinster. Against Munster, our forwards never dominated it, never gave him a platform, and he was left with a lot less space, a much, much more aggressive defensive line coming at him. Like Munster defended unbelievably. It was like playing against a brick wall. And I don't think he did anything wrong. I think he was a standard 10 in a game that was under the cosh, I'll say maybe he was involved in the decision making at the end, and you'd have to question that. But I don't know that for sure. But I don't think that there was anything wrong with the rest of how he played. I just don't think he was in the same position he was against Leinster last week, and I don't think he's going to be in that position very often. I think if we start to get a more dominant pack, and we play the Dragons, we play the Italian teams, and we play the Cardiffs or the Glasgows or whatever, or the Edinburghs, and they're not as good as that Munster team, because they're not, or they're not as good as Leinster from the week before, because they're not. He'll get a lot more chance. He'll get a lot more opportunities to showcase what he can do when you're on the front foot. But when you do come into an Interpro against a team that made, was it 13 odd changes from the week before, and you'll have a World Cup winner in the centre, and like Conor Murray, like Klein, Byrne, Coombs, O'Mahony, Stander, like that isn't an impossible team to play against. It's very, very difficult, and I don't think he shied away from anything. So I was impressed with him for different reasons than I was impressed against Leinster. I think it was a quieter game, but I think it was a well-managed game for someone that came under a load of pressure.
Yeah, my opinion on it is, I think coming from Andy Farrell's point of view, obviously before the Leinster game, he obviously wasn't too high on his rankings. After the Leinster game, he probably obviously was like, okay, I think the problem with McCarthy is he needs to perform at a certain level every game, because there definitely is a thing, obviously, with Connacht and not being viewed as much, whatever. But the problem with McCarthy is, and I kind of said before as well, his performance graph would always be like this. You know what I mean? Whereas more like a Ross Byrne or someone like that is a bit more, maybe boring, or that it's obviously more steady. And it's the same reason why we say about Finn Russell not being selected for the Lions. Like when you look at McCarthy as an international manager, he would kind of scare the life of you at the same time, because there is going to be a game where he's incredible, a la, Finn Russell against Saracens, and like can pull off something out of his ass. But at the same time, there is going to be a game where like that kick in the first few minutes, he misses that. Like, why is he missing that? Is that just a concentration thing, or is it just he just factored too much wind into it? Like, what is it? It's almost like with Carty, the harder it is, the more he's like, okay, I'm focused on this. Like that sideline kick, he's like, okay, this is tough. I'm going to actually try here and focus.
I said this before to Westy. I think that's more like he's actually over focusing on the easy ones, because he's like, people say I'm a bad kicker, so I have to really overly focus and mess himself up. Like you look at the winning conversion against Wasps a few years ago, where shots from the sideline in the last game and this game and stuff. Like he can kick beautifully when I don't think the pressure to have to score is on, but when it's square in front of the post from 40 yards, which looks, and every single armchair pundit like myself will say, easy kickable one, you can't be missing them. Like they're not when you're in your head, like, and it's unfortunate that I think that's the reason. I think he over emphasizes those kickable ones, because he knows that is one part that will always be thrown at him. Part of his game will be thrown at him when it comes to why he doesn't play for Ireland. They'll look at kicking stats and they'll just say, oh, he's a bit hit or miss.
Well, is that not a fair thing to throw at him?
No, because it's not like, I don't actually have a statistic in front of me now, and it's definitely updated from the weekend, but he is currently, or he was last week, his kicking percentage was, I think, 74, and then the two Irish people, there's one other Munster player who's played one game, was 100%, he struck one kick and got it. The other two are, I think it's Cooney and Ross Byrne maybe, who are 2% ahead of him. Like his kicking percentage is actually pretty decent. It's just that, as you say, maybe it's the easier ones that he misses rather than, he nails a fair few touchline conversions.
But again, if I'm Andy Farrell looking at that would frustrate you, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. And I've said this before. I love him. I think he's brilliant. I think he's the type of, and no disrespect to him as a player, because he's one of my favorite players. He's definitely my favorite to watch by far. But there is a place for a flat track bully in an Ireland squad, whereby he's in a squad and he plays the Italy game and he plays the Scotland game and he plays the tier 2 nations, and there's no problem with that. You can have horses for courses in international rugby, and maybe it's a type of thing where he needs to be in a position where there's we have the platform, but it'll pay more dividends for a player like that to be in there, and that there's no problem with that. And his kicking then, in my opinion, wouldn't come in under as much fire if that's his position within the squad. Alternatively, you have Cooney kicking like a 10. I know 10s do kick, but 10 doesn't have to kick. Like the pressure is off Billy Burns, because his kicking stats are never brought up ever, because he doesn't kick. It's Madigan or Cooney, like so.
Cooney's becoming like Lee Halfpenny. It's just like lasers down the fucking middle.
Yeah, he's such a sweet striker ball. Yeah. It's absolutely beautiful. Like,
just want to clarify, I'm not saying I don't. I like Carty too. I think I'd love if Ireland built a system that would benefit Carty, because it means we're playing attackive, creative rugby. I'm just playing devil's advocate here of looking as an Andy Farr. Like, that would obviously scare me a little bit, because there's no doubt Carty's best is better than most, if not the best in the country. But it's the lows and the inconsistencies that would scare you a little bit. So I'm hoping. Well, all the rugby's going to be cancelled, so it doesn't look like you get too much of a chance to be consistent. But
So Carty is third in the league for conversions.
Third in the league. Okay. And who's the top two ahead of him?
It is Cooney and Harry Byrne, ironically.
Harry Byrne doesn't count. How many has he kicked?
I don't know. I'll have to check his name. But yeah, so Cooney at the Jack Carty at the minute's on 75%. Harry Byrne's on 79. Cooney's on 81. Hanrahan actually jumped up this week, and it's Jack Crowley is the guy who took one kick.
Like, I'd love the idea of Cooney and Carty together. Like, that excites me as a fan, you know.
Yeah, and they're friendly as well. Like, from time of Connacht, I know they get on quite well. Like, that always helps. But Cooney and Carty,
neither will be picked.
Cooney and Carty playing against your Italys and your Georgias and your Spains or whatever, you know, or your midweek test in your summer tours, like, happy days. And I don't think there's any shame in having horses for courses players in your squad. You can have an Ireland squad that allows for a more enjoyable creative out half against teams that we're going to dominate. Like, that's a fine thing for me. If he's not playing against the All Blacks, I don't really mind, but I love to see more of him playing in those sort of games. And the
advantage of that maybe is if you do have him playing in those smaller games, when it's not working against France, you're not replacing a like for like player. You're bringing on somebody who does bring something to, and look, in my opinion, Billy Burns is of a similar ilk. Now, I watch a lot more Jack Carty, and I'm completely biased. I prefer Jack Carty. But I'm saying that, like, these are the types of players that we should be bringing on a replacement, not kind of like, I think Ross Byrne is a very good player, but I think he's quite forgettable in a lot of ways. I don't think he really brings anything new to games.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think, coming as someone who's unbiased, unlike you two schmucks, I would have Billy Burns slightly ahead. I know. Billy Burns slightly ahead just because of his consistency, I think. And he still has a lot of the pros that Carty has. But I'm happy to be wrong.
Being inconsistent was being levelled at Billy Burns for up to a year. And it's only very recently that his consistency has started to be something that people talk about, because he was regarded as very inconsistent.
But he has become consistent.
But there was massive talk when Madigan was brought in that, you know, it was because they couldn't rely on Billy Burns. So he's done it. I don't see why, like, that, you know, that talk couldn't happen for Carty. Another couple of games, like, I don't think the Munster game was too big a step down. The Leinster game was a great game. Another couple of games, the narrative has to change. I just think sometimes, and I know this is going to sound like woe is me, I'm a Connacht fan, but I think sometimes it's a lot easier for the narrative to change around players that don't play for Connacht. I think people are just tired and feathered with things like you know, stuff like Beelam's not good enough and, you know, Delan's a bit too slight. Those things just stick with Connacht players a bit more. I don't know if it's because they're out of the public eye a bit or something, but I think you can have 3 games at Munster and as a 20-year-old, and everyone's talking about having to start for Ireland and planning for the future, and that doesn't happen as much. Like Sean Masterson, that same conversation needs to be bandied around about him because he's been stellar.
It was very impressive.
Yeah, that's fair enough. We'll move on because we're coming up to 50 minutes already. One last question. This comes in from Morgan O'Connell. Thanks for the question, Morgan. But it's on the evidence of the past few weeks. What young players can you see breaking into the international squad for the Six Nation, assuming it goes ahead? We'll go through the provinces. So I'll start with Ulster. I have James Hume and Ethan McElroy, I think, off the top of my head. I think they're exciting young players. Westy, what about you? Anyone else apart from those two?
I think I did say it for the previous Six Nations in Sam's Literary. I think Mike Lowry has been very, very impressive for Ulster. I know he's a small guy, but he, to me, seems to be one of the consistent performers in their team, and I'd love to see him in an Ireland camp and see how he gets on.
I also would. Sorry, I just forgot. I would have to John Cooney. I also want John Cooney to be in, but I don't know.
You said young players, though, didn't you?
Yeah, I said young players, but like just to clarify, we want Cooney in the camp too. But Sam, anyone else from Ulster that you want?
No, I think personally it's probably a little early for McElroy, but I think Lowry and Hume have both definitely deserved it. I think they've both been brilliant. I know you're talking about young players, but I thought Jordy Murphy was playing like a man possessed the other day. He's had his chance, but I wouldn't mind seeing him back in. I know we have a wealth of back rows as well, so it's kind of hard to tell. But yeah, I think I'd be very happy to see Hume in. I think he's a really, really good player. McElroy might be a little bit early for him, but Mike Lowry's been consistent now for the last while. So they're amassing a really nice, good young team. Like Billy Burns isn't old either, so like they're building a really, really solid foundation of a team, and they've great young players coming through.
Yeah, there's young guys there as well, but we haven't really seen enough of them.
Yeah, like you'd love to see a fit Balakoon as well, but
Balakoon, you have Marcus Ray, is it? Ray, and then there's the
two Ray brothers. Is it Matthew
McCann? Was it McCann that was McCann played last week? And they're all raving about him being a possible Coetzee or replacement. So, but we haven't seen enough of them really to clarify them yet. But we'll move on. Munster, obviously, I think the main one that stands out is obviously Coombs. He really has asserted himself in the last couple of weeks as being a real baller. What about Ben Healy? Do we think we would like to see Ben Healy, even just to cap him, so we annoy the Scots?
I wouldn't cap him for the sake of annoying the Scots. I think he's been one of those players that I was kind of alluding to earlier, whereby they're bigging him up because he had 2 good games. He's not done enough for me to cap. I don't like we're talking about how you can fit Carty in or how you fit Burns in or who you fit into that, like the two Burns in Leinster, Frawley even, I think that he's, and then Carberry to come back. I think he's so far down at the moment. Until he does it for a bit more, I wouldn't put him near an Ireland squad, regardless of the getting capped or not.
Westy, what do you think? What's your views on Ben Healy?
Look, I don't see the point in capping someone just for the sake of it.
Even to annoy the Scots?
Well, maybe. How annoyed would they be?
Rodney, are you, Westy?
Oh yeah, Jesus. I think he's been really good. He's been really impressive. I think like there's so much potential there, but I think we have made mistakes of pulling players into international squads before they're ready. Some of them have had short-lived international careers. So I think, give them a couple more, give them the rest of the season, maybe in the summer tour, as you say. Is it worth bringing, if we go, let's say the likes of, especially if there's a Lions tour, let's say, and we're going on a reduced squad tour, it's worth probably bringing someone like Ben Healy at that point. Or, he could be, Farrell's been bringing in these young lads into the squad to do a bit of training. He could be worth bringing in as an extra squad member in February. I'm not sure.
Anyone else in Munster, Wesley, that's caught your eye?
There's Craig Casey as well. Obviously, there's a lot of talk about him.
Is he also on the, like, as you said, played well a few games for Munster, and everyone's kind of crying to get him in when you have a Cooney up in Ulster who's a bit more tried and tested, and he can't get in.
Yeah, I think, was it against Ulster there 2 weeks ago? I think Craig Casey struggled a little bit, and I'm not saying throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like, you're going to have that as a young lad. You have to get these games under your belt. So I think a bit more time. I think scrum half shouldn't be a position we're looking for, because we have John Cooney up in Ulster, and as well, again, really biased, but I think Blady's been pretty good. Marmion was good when he came on against Munster. We definitely improved when Marmion came on.
Murray has found a bit of form again, in fairness to him.
He has, yeah. I'm just saying it's not a position. There's a bit of question around 10 now, as we're kind of worried about Sexton's longevity, and there's a lot of people who are thereabouts. No one's put a head up. I think in regards to scrum half, like, there are a lot of options there, and I think it's a harder fight now for Craig Hayes to get involved. But another one I really like is Finian Wycherley. I think is very good.
You keep stealing mine. Stop asking him first. It's not the last one as well.
It's not stealing, Sam. We're a collective unit here. Come on. No.
Sorry, I'll let Sam talk about Finian Wycherley then for a bit.
Yeah.
No, I'm not going to talk about him too much. I've been really impressed with him. He's quietly amassed a lot of caps for Munster, and I think he's been very good. It's a position that we're not light on. We have some really good players in, but you could always improve in it. It's not like the back row where you're like, how does a new player even break into that? I think that Lockie, he's got an opportunity there if he continues to play the way he is to get into it. And I don't know, does he count as young? But Shane Daly is just very, very impressive, and I'd have him in an Ireland team.
If we were young, handsome players, definitely Shane Daly.
Oh yeah,
so handsome.
But definitely have him in the squad. I thought that Keenan was unbelievable at fullback the other day, and he'd be my kind of first choice for it. But Daly he's been impressive, and I wouldn't mind him at fullback or wing or wherever you want to play him. Like, he's seriously safe as houses, that chap.
Yeah. Move on to Leinster. I think he could pick a lot here, but Scott Penny.
Leinster fans, there's just fucking everyone that ever graduated from St. Michael's.
All right, Sam. Easy now. Scott Penny obviously stands out. He's been incredible the last few games. The likes of Kieran Frawley has also kind of shown. But what do you guys think? Sam, we'll start with you then, so West doesn't steal any.
Yeah, well, like I know it's the obvious choice, but Baird has been brilliant. See him for a while. Caelan Dars deserves to keep his place. Thought he was impressive at the weekend. I think it's kind of tough on Jack Conan now that Caelan Dars seems to be way ahead of him in the pecking order. That injury probably came at the wrong time for him. So, there's lots of really, really, really talented young Leinster players. We're never surprised when a team of Leinster players that you've never heard of beat fucking Dragons by 40 points. So, they keep just coming through. But no, I think Baird will definitely make it in. I think Harry Byrne, if he is as good as people say, he needs to get his chance, either be that at Leinster in a big game or be that for Ireland. Ross Byrne is playing all the games that Sexton's not the last while, and it's getting in the way of Harry Byrne playing them, and it's getting in the way of Ross Byrne playing tough games. So, you'd like to see Harry Byrne kick on because people keep telling me how good he is, and I need to see it to believe it, sort of thing.
A funny fact, actually, Tolan selected Ryan Baird as man match of the night, even though he wasn't playing. That's how good Ryan Baird is.
That's how good he was the week before.
That's how good he was. He was like really good on the bench, though. He clapped a lot, so Tolan gave it to him. Westy, anyone to add there to that?
No, I think Sam's going to cover them all by naming the entire Leinster squad. There's a young lad, Jonathan Sexton.
Yeah.
I haven't seen this guy play much, I tell you, he's got something.
He's a young 44.
No, yeah, like obviously, I think like Caelan Dars, I think was really good.
He's so good. He really has.
Been pretty
he's
consistent.
A young player to bring into the squad. Caelan Dars count. He's already established.
I'd say maybe if I'm going to pick one to highlight, one to highlight is probably Ryan Baird. I think second row is a place where we probably are looking for something we haven't found yet. Now, I might be wrong in believing that it's Byrne and Ryan are the answer here, but there's definitely space for, like I said, Byrne or Fianna Wycherley or one of these lads are going to step up and take it. No, Murray, exactly, but he needs 100%. A consistent string of games.
We'll move on to Connacht, and lads, we're nearly at the hour mark, so let's keep this fucking quick, right? Westy, you can start this time because we'll go with snake format.
I'll just go with one because I don't want to hold up. I think Sean Maston has been incredible for the last string of games for Connacht. I think man's 20 years old and he hasn't looked out of place anywhere in Europe or against the two best teams in the country. I would also say probably Paul Boyle as well. But if I'm sticking to one, I'm going to go. I think Sean Maston is an unbelievable find for Connacht.
Agreed. Sam?
Yeah, Masterson been brilliant. Really, unbelievable. I think, if you're going on players that actually deserve it, as well as being young Blade and Boyle, Boyle has been for a year and a half now one of our best players, and Blade has been an able understudy to Kieran Marmion whenever he's been out or with the Ireland team, and has now put himself in the conversation as who's the starter at Connacht. So I think that get Blade in, get him an actual game, because he adds an element of speed and aggression that you just love to see. Like, he's really front foot and is great. So I Blade and Boyle, yeah. And then obviously young lad Buckley, only the 250 odd caps for Connacht.
Yeah.
2 times in the team of the year, won a Pro 12, never capped. Like, what?
Well, what's a man gonna do? What's a man gonna do? Also, there's a young Irish lad called John Porch. Get him in. Get him in somehow.
The new bod.
Right, boy. Shout out to Bod, obviously went off with the head injury. Hopefully he's okay. Someone else went off with a nasty enough head injury. Who was that again? I can't think off the top of my head. Anyway, there's a few injuries that went off. Hopefully everyone's okay and returns quickly. But lads, that was a good one. I always knew this was going to be a long one because it was. Do you feel better after that therapy session?
Therapeutic.
Yeah, Westy, you look 10 years younger after that. Tell you that.
Oh, thanks. I fear the beard ages me too much.
All right, boys, that was a fun one. Hopefully we'll have some rugby to talk about in the next couple of weeks. We may or may not. But as always, it's been a pleasure. So cheers, boys. Chat to you soon.
Bye.